3 years ago, I brought Vivian into the company. From intern to HR director, I spoke up for her every time she got promoted. The layoff list had 23 people on it. I was first. She put me there. Wendy, I really had no choice. Her eyes were red. It came from upstairs. I said nothing. Her phone buzzed. Anand's message. Pinned contact, marked with a red heart. The avatar was a man's profile. A dark blue plaid shirt. The one I had ironed for Henry myself last night. Henry was my husband. I put the list back in my bag and stood up. Vivian, the shirt on your pinned contact. I ironed it last night. Her face went white. Wendy, wait. Vivian's voice chased after me into the hallway, thick with tears. I didn't look back. My heels clicked against the tile, one step at a time. The elevator doors opened, and she caught up, grabbing my arm. You misunderstood. That person isn't Henry. Dark blue plaid shirt, with a tiny burn hole under the left chest pocket. I looked at her hand. I accidentally scorched it while ironing last night. Her fingers loosened. Wendy. Vivian. I pressed the elevator button. When you cry, your left eye goes red first, then the right one follows. You've used that trick on me for 3 years. It doesn't work very well anymore. The elevator doors closed. I leaned against the wall and watched the numbers drop. Basement 1. Parking garage. I got into the car and shut the door. My phone lit up. It was a message. Vivian sent me a voice note, but I didn't open it. Then another text came in. Wendy, if you don't believe me, you can ask Henry directly. He'll explain. I stared at that line for 10 seconds. Then I opened Henry's ins. Last Wednesday, he posted a photo of coffee with the caption, "Working late into the night. A cup of coffee someone brought me felt extra warm." That night, he told me he was at the office rushing a proposal. I hadn't brought him any coffee. The first comment was from Vivian. You worked hard, heart. Henry replied with a smiling emoji. I kept scrolling. A month ago, he said he was taking clients out to golf. He didn't post any photos on ins. But Vivian did. A beach, a sunset, a red bikini with the caption, "Be nicer to me on vacation." In the bottom right corner of the second photo, there was a man's hand, with a wedding ring I knew very well on the ring finger. The scratch was on the left side. Henry always used his left hand on the steering wheel when he drove, and that was where it had worn. I exited ins and started the car. By the time I got home, it was 7:30. Henry leaned out of the kitchen and smiled. You're back? Why so early today? Nothing to do, so I came home. Wash your hands and eat. The steak just came off the pan. At the dinner table, he served me food and talked about work today. Remember that finance guy, Mark? He printed 1 extra 0 on the report today. The boss thought our department's revenue had multiplied by 10. He was happy for a whole hour. He laughed naturally. I laughed too. By the way, he said, did you iron that blue plaid shirt for me? I've got an important meeting tomorrow. It's hanging in the 3rd section of the closet. Thanks, babe. He reached over and squeezed my fingers. His fingertips were warm. After dinner, he went to wash the dishes. I went into the bedroom and opened the closet. The blue plaid shirt was hanging there. I took it down and brought it close to my nose. Under the scent of laundry detergent, there was a very faint fragrance. Bleu de Chanel. I had given it to Vivian on her birthday 3 years ago. I love it so much. She had hugged me and said, Wendy, you are the best person in the world to me. I hung the shirt back up. Inside the pocket, my fingers found a crumpled receipt. Blue Mountain Coffee, 2 cups. 1 Americano, 1 less sweet latte. I drink Americano. Henry drinks Americano too. Who was the less sweet latte for? The sound of water in the bathroom stopped, and he came out wrapped in a bath towel. Babe, I may come back a little late tomorrow. I've got a project to finish up. Okay. Don't stay up too late. He kissed my forehead. Henry. How long has it been since you spent our wedding anniversary with me? His movement paused. Didn't we last month? Last month you said you had a sudden business trip. Right, that client couldn't be pushed off. Did that client wear a red bikini? His expression flickered, then returned to normal. What are you talking about? The client was a bald guy in his 50s. Oh, why are you suddenly bringing this up? Nothing. There's a little hole under your shirt pocket. I accidentally made it while ironing. Don't mind it. I don't mind. He smiled. You ironed it for me. Even the hole looks good. The lights went out. In the dark, his breathing gradually evened out. My eyes stayed open. At 2 in the morning, his phone lit up once. A pop-up's message appeared on the screen, marked Project Team Kevin. Hubby, I already handled what happened last time. She won't get a chance to turn it around. Don't worry. Followed by a kiss emoji. Hubby. Turn it around. The screen went dark. Henry rolled over and draped an arm over my waist. Babe. He mumbled indistinctly. I didn't move. Good night, I said. No one answered. Here, I bought you coffee and unsweetened Americano. Vivian stood in front of my desk, smiling gently, holding a Starbucks cup. With her other hand, she lightly rested against my shoulder. I thought about what happened yesterday all night. It really was the call from upstairs. I fought for you. I took the coffee. Thanks. What you said yesterday about the shirt. She lowered her voice and leaned in. My boyfriend happens to have the same one. We just ended up in matching clothes, so don't overthink it. Your boyfriend? Yeah, we've only been dating 2 months. We haven't made it public yet. She winked. I'll introduce you someday. Okay. She walked away smiling. I took a sip of the coffee. Americano, but with sugar added. I never put sugar in my Americano. She remembered that Henry drank less sweet lattes, but she couldn't remember my taste. At 10 in the morning, my coworker Zoe passed by my desk, put down a stack of files and said quietly, "Director Wendy, there's something I don't know if I should tell you." Say it. She looked around and pulled me into the break room. That layoff list. I saw 3 versions on the printer. 3 versions. The first version had 15 people, and you weren't on it. The second had 20 people, and you were 8th. The third one is the current one, with 23 people, and you're first. Who changed it? Vivian. All 3 versions' edit logs are under her account. Every time someone got added, Zoe bit her lip. It was always someone you brought up. I said nothing. And there's one more thing. Zoe lowered her voice. Did you see last week's annual department evaluation report? I submitted it. Not your version. She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. On the screen, under the department evaluation section, Wendy, average coordination ability, domineering management style, poor team cohesion, recommends salary reduction, transfer, or optimization. A red X was marked after my name. Here's another section for job recommendations. Zoe turned to the next page. Vivian wrote that her assistant, Emma, should take your place. Someone who's been here less than half a year. When was this report submitted? 2 weeks ago. 3 days before the layoff list. Is the original report still in the system? Yes, but the permissions were changed. Only Vivian and the admin can see it. I found it when IT restored a batch of files during system maintenance last week. Zoe looked at me. Director Wendy, she did this on purpose. I knew that. At noon, Vivian came to find me again. She sat across from me and put a chicken wing into my bowl. Wendy, eat more. You've lost weight lately. Emma. How about hot pot tonight? Let's call Henry too. We haven't gotten together in a long time. He's working late tonight. Then it'll just be the 2 of us. She took my hand in hers. Wendy, no matter what happens, you're my best friend. Her palm was warm. The same temperature as when Henry had squeezed my fingers last night. Vivian. That new boyfriend of yours. What does he do? Her eyes flickered. Finance. Which company? A small company. You wouldn't know it. What's his name? Wendy, why are you so interested in my boyfriend? She smiled. Jealous. Just asking. In the afternoon, I went into HR's shared folder. I didn't have admin privileges, but the back-end entry for the old system hadn't been closed yet. 3 minutes later, I found every file Vivian had submitted. Besides the altered evaluation report, there was one more thing. The title was Core Employee Seating Adjustment Plan. The content was simple. Move Wendy's desk from the 8th floor department area to the 3rd floor administrative area. The reason given was optimizing office space. 3rd floor admin. Next to the bathroom drain pipe, with no windows. She had even planned where I would sit. At the bottom of the file was a note. It wasn't Vivian's handwriting. Confirmed with HR. Execute next Monday. Henry. My husband's name appeared on a file that moved me next to the bathroom. I opened the company directory and searched for Henry. One result. Finance Department. Senior Finance Manager. Start date, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he told me he was switching to an investment company. The company's not big. You wouldn't know it even if I told you. It was exactly what Vivian had just said. He had been working at my company for 2 years. In the same building. I was on the 8th floor, and he was on the 10th. Between us was the 9th floor, HR Vivian's floor. My phone rang. Henry. Babe. What do you want for dinner tonight? Anything's fine. What's wrong with your voice? Just a little tired. Then get off work early. I'll be waiting for you at home. I hung up. Then I pulled up the screenshot of that message from midnight. Project Team Kevin. Hubby. She won't get a chance to turn it around. Don't worry. Kevin. Vivian, you really are something. Director Wendy. You should attend the management meeting this afternoon. My assistant Lily came in carrying a file, her expression strange. What's the topic? Director Vivian is hosting it. Budget review for each department, and the personnel optimization plan. At 2 in the afternoon, more than a dozen people were seated in the conference room. Vivian stood in front of the projector in a white turtleneck sweater, elegant and gentle. Everyone, the company is under some pressure this year, so we need to improve efficiency. She clicked to the next slide. Let's start with each department's mid-year performance. A table appeared on the screen. Marketing, 120% completion. Tech, 115%. Sales, 98%. Operations, my department, 47%. 47%. I had led my team to 18 million in revenue in the first half of the year, with a target of 20 million. The completion rate was 90%, not 47%. The operations department's performance is indeed not ideal. Vivian sounded regretful as she looked at me. Director Wendy has worked hard too, but data doesn't lie. How is this data calculated? I asked. By finance. She looked at me. Do you have an objection? The data I submitted was 18 million, with a 90% completion rate. Finance recalculated it. The revenue attribution for a few projects was adjusted. What was the basis for the adjustment? That's a professional financial judgment. I'm not too familiar with it. She flipped through the file in her hand. If you have questions, you can confirm them with finance after the meeting. And, she continued, after a comprehensive evaluation, the operations department ranked last in productivity across all departments. So the layoff list has a high proportion of people from operations. Out of the 23 people, 14 came from my department. More than half of them were going to be laid off. Wendy, she called me by my nickname in front of everyone. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's not a personal problem. It's the bigger environment. Gentle. Considerate. Like she was feeling sorry for me. In reality, she had just used fake data to sentence my department to death. After the meeting, I went straight to the finance department on the 10th floor. I found Roger, the finance supervisor. Supervisor Roger, what standard was used to adjust operations revenue accounting? Roger pushed up his glasses. Last month, Director Vivian brought over an adjustment request saying the revenue attribution of 3 projects needed to be reassigned, from operations to marketing. Who signed it? The process requires the department liaison's signature for confirmation. Roger handed me the file. On the signature line was a very familiar handwriting. Henry. This Henry. I pointed at the signature. Which department is he from? Finance. He handles cross-department accounting coordination. Roger looked at me. Director Wendy doesn't know him? He's been here 2 years. I know him. When I walked out of the 10th floor, the window at the end of the hallway was open. The November wind blew in, cold enough to bite. Henry had worked at the company for 2 years. He had helped Vivian adjust my department's data. He had signed it. Then he went home and cooked me steak, kissed my forehead, and said, "Babe, you've worked hard." I took the elevator down to basement 1 and found Henry's car, the one from my dowry. The car wasn't locked. There was a beige silk scarf on the passenger seat. Hermes. The one Vivian usually wore. I opened the glove compartment and found a hotel receipt inside. 4 Seasons Hotel, Presidential Suite. Spent $8,600. Date: October 15th. That was our 3rd wedding anniversary. Henry said he had flown to Miami for a business trip. He even sent me a photo of the beach. I replied at the time, "The beach looks so beautiful. Take me there next time." He said, "Definitely." Hanging from the rearview mirror were a pair of keychains. 2 teddy bears, one red and one blue, with 2 letters engraved on the base, W and H. Wendy and Henry, not T and H. I took a photo of the receipt and put the keychain in my pocket. When I got back to my desk, Zoe came over again. Director Wendy, Vivian was just in the break room telling a few department heads. She hesitated. The exact words. She said, "Wendy has been very unstable emotionally since she found out about the layoffs, and she was saying some pretty out there things in my office yesterday. Please be understanding with her, she's really pitiful." Unstable. Out there. Pitiful. Once those 3 labels were stuck on me, anything I said later would be treated like the ramblings of someone having an emotional breakdown. My phone rang. Vivian. Wendy, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? You decide. How about a steakhouse? You said last time you wanted pizza. Vivian. Where were you on October 15th? The line went quiet for 3 seconds. Wendy, why are you suddenly asking that? That was my wedding anniversary. Henry was away on a business trip, and I was at home alone eating instant noodles. I wanted to know whether everyone else had a better day than I did. 3 more seconds of silence. I was working overtime that day. I was at the company until very late by myself. Oh, that must have been hard too. Yeah. So 7 o'clock at the steakhouse. Okay. I hung up. The hotel receipt showed a check-in time of 3 in the afternoon. Working late into the night. Vivian, your overtime spot is really upscale. The steakhouse sat on the 42nd floor of the Grand Hyatt, all low amber. lighting, plush velvet booths, and smooth jazz vibrating through the polished floorboards. Vivian arrived 7 minutes late. She wore a cream-colored cashmere coat, a diamond-cut tennis bracelet catching the candlelight on her wrist, and her signature smile, soft, radiant, completely disarming. "Wendy, sorry I'm late," she breathed, hanging her coat over the back of the chair and sliding into the booth across from me. HR had a mountain of exit interviews to process. You know how draining it gets. I looked at the bracelet on her left wrist. White gold. A 3-carat tennis link. 2 months ago, Henry had asked me for $10,000 from our joint savings account, claiming his mother in Ohio needed an emergency dental implant surgery. "Tough day?" I asked, keeping my voice smooth, pouring sparkling water into her glass. "Exhausting," Vivian sighed, resting her chin on her manicured hand. "Honestly, Wendy, sometimes I wish I could just step away from it all like you're about to. Corporate life is so toxic. Once the restructuring goes through, you'll finally have time to breathe. You and Henry could travel. Maybe finally think about having a baby." Her eyes were wide, pool-like, shining with what looked like pure maternal empathy. For 3 years, that look had made me defend her in every executive meeting. When the senior VP wanted to fire her for botching the campus recruitment pipeline during her 2nd year, I spent an entire weekend rewriting her reports and took the blame for the delay. "A baby," I repeated, swirling the ice in my glass. "Henry mentioned that last night." Vivian's hand twitched slightly on the white tablecloth. "Did he?" "He said that after the layoffs I could stay home. He said he'd support me." I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on the table. "He's been working so hard lately. Did you know he took a client out to golf a month ago? Sent me pictures of the green." Vivian smiled, picking up her fork. "Henry is ambitious. Men like that are rare these days." "He was wearing a red polo in the photo," I said casually. Though funnily enough, when I unpacked his luggage 3 days later, his golf bag was covered in fine white sand. The kind you only find on the Gulf Coast in Florida, not the golf club in suburban New Jersey. The fork in Vivian's hand made a tiny, sharp clink against her porcelain plate. She didn't look up immediately. When she did, her smile had tightened by a fraction of a millimeter. "You really notice everything, Wendy. Maybe you should have been a detective instead of an operations director." "An operations director has to verify the numbers," I replied calmly. "Like the mid-year performance figures from this afternoon. Roger in finance told me you brought over an adjustment request to reallocate $8 million of my team's enterprise contracts to marketing." Vivian took a slow sip of her Pinot Noir. The panic that had flashed across her eyes in the elevator yesterday was gone, replaced by a cool, practiced corporate veneer. "It wasn't personal, Wendy. The CEO wanted to highlight marketing's growth for the upcoming Series C funding round. Finance agreed it made the overall portfolio look more balanced." "And the signature on the adjustment form?" I asked. "A senior finance manager named Henry." Vivian let out a light, airy chuckle that sounded like silver bells. "Oh, that Henry? He's just a mid-level analyst who executes the system approvals. You aren't suggesting there's some grand conspiracy, are you?" She reached across the table, placing her warm, manicured palm over the back of my hand. "Wendy, look at you. You're stressed. You're paranoid. It's completely understandable given the layoff announcement, but you're starting to see ghosts everywhere." I didn't pull my hand away. I looked down at her wrist. Up close, beneath the scent of her expensive red wine, the fragrance radiating from her pulse point was unmistakable. "Bleu de Chanel." "Vivian," I said softly, looking up into her eyes. "Yes. On October 15th, when you were working overtime in the Four Seasons presidential suite, did Henry wear the blue plaid shirt, or did he leave it hanging on the chair?" The color drained from Vivian's face so fast it was as if someone had pulled a plug beneath her skin. Her fingers went rigid against my hand. For 4 long seconds, the jazz music in the restaurant seemed to fade into a hollow, underwater buzz. "Wendy, what are you talking about?" Her voice dropped to a ragged whisper. "The steak is getting cold," I said, picking up my knife and slicing cleanly through the medium-rare fillet. "Eat up. You worked hard for it." I left the restaurant at 8:45 p.m. without waiting for the bill. Instead of driving home, I steered the car toward an office park on the west side of the city, pulling into the underground garage of Vance and Sterling Legal Associates. Eleanor Vance, a legendary corporate litigator and forensic auditor who had been my college mentor 10 years ago, was waiting for me on the 12th floor with 2 steaming mugs of black coffee and a team of 3 data forensic analysts. "You look remarkably calm for a woman whose husband and protege are trying to put her on the street," Eleanor said, pushing a thick blue binder across the glass conference table. Rage is a waste of metabolic energy, I said, sitting down and opening the binder. Show me the paper trail. Eleanor gestured to her lead analyst, a young woman with wire-rimmed glasses who tapped the keyboard of a high-speed terminal. We ran the subpoena through our backdoor audit channel with the state banking registry, Eleanor explained, tapping the glowing screen. It's worse than you thought, Wendy. The screen displayed a complex web of corporate transactions. Henry didn't just join your company 2 years ago as a finance manager, Eleanor said, her voice dropping into a razor-sharp clinical cadence. He was brought in through a specialized recruitment loophole created by Vivian herself. The recruitment commission alone, $52,000, was paid directly to an offshore shell account in Belize registered under Vivian's maiden name. I traced my finger along the digital ledger. And the project reallocation? I asked. Here, the analyst zoomed in on the enterprise data logs. Over the past 18 months, your operations team brought in 26 separate enterprise contracts. Henry systematically altered the project billing codes in the ERP database, funneling the management overhead percentages into a dummy vendor called Aegis Consulting Limited. Who owns Aegis? 50% Henry, 50% Vivian, Eleanor said, dropping a corporate registration certificate onto the table. They have already siphoned over $1.4 million of company revenue into private accounts over the last 2 fiscal quarters. The fake 47% performance rating wasn't just designed to get you laid off. It was designed to create an operational black hole so that when the auditors arrive for the Series C round, the missing $1.4 million looks like operational deficits caused by your incompetent management. I sat in the silence of the conference room, the hum of the computer fans vibrating through the glass. They didn't just want an affair. They didn't just want my husband and my title. They were setting me up to take the fall for federal corporate embezzlement. If the layoff went through as planned, within 3 months, the internal audit would have discovered the $1.4 million deficit in operations, with my signature on the department's baseline accounts and Vivian's falsified evaluation reports labeling me unstable and uncooperative. I would have been indicted for grand larceny while Henry and Vivian walked away with the cash and the promotions. Wendy. Eleanor leaned across the table, her sharp eyes studying my face. We have enough here to file a civil injunction and a criminal referral with the district attorney tomorrow morning. We can freeze their assets by noon. No, I said quietly, looking up from the documents. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. No. If we file a civil suit now, Henry will hire a white-collar defense firm. Vivian will claim she was merely an administrative pawn following executive orders, and the board will settle it quietly behind closed doors to protect their Series C valuation. I said, my voice steady, cold, and clear as Arctic ice. They will get fired, pay a fine, and move to another city with half the money they stole. What do you want to do then? I closed the blue binder with a solid, echoing thud. The annual shareholder and executive town hall is this Friday at 10 in the morning, I said, meeting Eleanor's gaze. The entire board of directors, the venture capital partners, and the press will be in the grand auditorium. Vivian is scheduled to present the final restructuring plan, and Henry is delivering the quarterly finance summary. A slow, terrifying smile spread across Eleanor's weathered face. You want an execution in broad daylight. I want them to burn where everyone can see the smoke. When I arrived home at 11:30 p.m., the lights in the living room were dimmed. A bottle of expensive Cabernet was breathing on the kitchen island, beside a vase of fresh white lilies. Henry was sitting on the sofa in his gray cashmere sweater, looking up from his iPad with that gentle, attentive smile that had convinced me to marry him 4 years ago. Babe, he said, standing up and wrapping his arms around my waist, burying his face in my hair. You're home so late. How was dinner with Vivian? It was enlightening, I replied, letting my arms rest lightly against his shoulders. She called me earlier, Henry murmured, kissing my cheek. She sounded really worried about you. She said you looked exhausted, that the stress of the company restructuring is taking a huge toll on your health. Did she? Yeah. Henry led me to the sofa, gently pressing me down onto the cushions. Before kneeling in front of me, taking my cold hands into his warm palms. Wendy, listen to me. I hate seeing you like this. You've been carrying that department on your shoulders for 5 years. Why don't you just accept the severance package? I've been doing really well at my investment firm lately. We have plenty of savings. You can hand over the handover documents tomorrow, take a few months off, and let me take care of you. I looked down at him. His eyes were clear, earnest, brimming with what looked like pure marital devotion. If I hadn't seen the Belize Incorporation documents 3 hours ago, I would have fallen into his arms, weeping with relief. You really want me to step down, Henry? I asked, my fingers lightly brushing through his hair. I just want you to be happy, he whispered, leaning up to kiss my forehead. You don't need that corporate rat race. Let Vivian handle the headache. You deserve peace. What about our apartment? I asked, looking around the 2,500 square foot penthouse overlooking the river, the one my late father had purchased for me in cash as a premarital asset. If I don't have an income, the property taxes and maintenance fees will be heavy. Henry's eyes flickered with a faint, predatory gleam before he quickly smoothed it over with a reassuring smile. That's another thing I was thinking about, he said smoothly, pulling a set of legal forms from his leather briefcase on the floor. My firm has an asset protection trust structure. If we transfer the title of the penthouse into the trust under both our names, we can avoid the capital gains tax and shield it from any liability if your company tries to audit your department after the layoff. He handed me a pen. Quitclaim deed and asset transfer agreement. The signature line for the transferee was already filled out. Henry Miller and Aegis Asset Holdings Ltd. He wasn't just trying to frame me for embezzlement. He was trying to take my father's house before the hammer fell. Henry, I said, holding the heavy gold pen in my fingers. Yeah, babe. You've thought of everything. Only because I love you, he smiled, his eyes fixed eagerly on the tip of the pen. I set the pen down on the coffee table, right in the center of the document. I'll sign it on Friday, I said softly, looking him dead in the eye. Right. After the company town hall. Let's make it a clean start for both of us. Henry let out a breath he had clearly been holding, a triumphant, intoxicating smile spreading across his face. Friday, he nodded, pulling me into a tight embrace. Friday will be the start of our brand new life. Over his shoulder, in the dark reflection of the living room window, I watched my own face. I didn't blink. Thursday was a day of absolute, suffocating quiet. In the office, the atmosphere was like a funeral parlor. The 14 employees from my team who had been placed on the layoff list were clearing their desks, packing cardboard boxes in silence. Vivian strolled through the 8th floor hallway in a tailored ivory suit, holding a clipboard, followed by 2 security guards and her assistant, Emma. Everyone, please ensure all company-issued laptops are surrendered to HR. By 5 p.m. today, Vivian announced, her voice sweet, musical, and completely unbothered. Severance checks will be mailed to your home addresses following the formal board approval tomorrow morning. Zoe was crying quietly at her desk, taping up a box of design awards. Vivian stopped beside Zoe's desk, placing a hand on her shoulder with feigned sorrow. Zoe, I really fought for you. But Director Wendy's department metrics were simply too low. In corporate restructuring, the numbers dictate the outcome. I hope you understand. Zoe wiped her face, biting her lip so hard it bled, but said nothing. I stepped out of my corner office, dressed in a sharp slate gray power suit with silver cufflinks. Vivian turned to me, her eyes flashing with a mixture of victory and lingering anxiety. Wendy, are your transition files ready for the board meeting tomorrow? Everything is prepared, Vivian, I said calmly, holding a single black leather USB drive in my hand. Every single transaction has been meticulously documented. Good. Vivian smirked, leaning in to whisper so only I could hear. Don't bother coming to the podium tomorrow, Wendy. The board has already approved the agenda. Henry and I will handle the presentation. You should just stay in the audience and accept the outcome with some dignity. Dignity is important, I agreed, looking at the tiny gold cross necklace resting against her collarbone, another gift Henry had bought on his company expense card. Make sure you wear your best outfit tomorrow, Vivian. The cameras in the grand auditorium have very high resolution. Vivian frowned slightly, a tiny knot of unease tightening between her brows. What does that mean? It means you've earned your moment in the spotlight. I turned on my heel and walked into the executive elevator, leaving her standing in the corridor. That night, while Henry was in the shower singing an old pop song, I opened his laptop on the study desk. Using the master decryption key Eleanor's forensics team had generated, I downloaded the complete email archive from his private server, 500 pages of WhatsApp messages, offshore bank statements, surveillance hotel logs, and the original, unedited financial spreadsheets proving my department's $18 million revenue. I attached the files to a pre-scheduled broadcast email addressed to every member of the board of directors, the Securities and Exchange Commission, compliance portal, the city's major financial press outlets, and all 1,200 employees of the company. The scheduled send time, Friday 10:25 a.m., right in the middle of Vivian's keynote presentation. I closed the laptop, returned it to his bag, and went to bed. Beside me, Henry slept like a baby, his arm draped across my waist, dreaming of stolen millions and a penthouse he would never own. Friday 10 a.m. The grand auditorium on the second floor of the corporate headquarters was packed to capacity. Over 400 senior managers, regional directors, and board members sat in plush velvet seats beneath the blinding glare of stage spotlights. On the front row of the VIP mezzanine sat Chairman Arthur Hastings and CEO Richard Vance, flanked by the lead partners of the venture capital firm funding the Series C round. I sat in the third row of the main floor, perfectly poised, wearing an immaculate bespoke midnight black tuxedo suit with sharp peak lapels. Beside me sat Zoe Lilly and my entire 14-member operations team, dressed in matching dark suits. At 10:15 a.m., the lights dimmed. The master of ceremonies stepped up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Director of Human Resources, Vivian Thorne, and Senior Finance Manager, Henry Miller, to present the Annual Efficiency Optimization and Strategic Realignment Report. Polite applause rippled through the auditorium. Vivian strode onto the stage with supreme confidence, wearing a striking emerald green silk dress, her hair cascading in flawless waves over her shoulders. Beside her, Henry stood at the podium in a tailored navy three-piece suit and the dark blue plaid tie I had bought him for his birthday 2 years ago. Thank you, Chairman Hastings, CEO Vance, and esteemed colleagues, Vivian began, her voice projecting through the surround sound speakers with smooth, practiced eloquence. Today marks a pivotal transition for our company. As we prepare for our Series C expansion, we must eliminate redundant overhead and streamline our operational productivity. She clicked the remote. The colossal 50-foot LED screen behind her lit up with the department performance rankings. There it was. Operations Department. 47% target completion. Recommended for full divisional optimization. As you can see, Vivian continued, casting a theatrical, sorrowful glance toward where I sat in the third row. While we deeply appreciate the past contributions of Director Wendy, the operational data over the past 2 quarters demonstrates a severe decline in execution, poor team cohesion, and an unsustainable deficit. Therefore, HR and Finance jointly recommend the elimination of 14 operational roles and the transition of remaining assets to marketing. Henry stepped up to the second microphone, adjusting his glasses, exuding the calm authority of a seasoned financial executive. From a balance sheet perspective, Henry spoke clearly, looking directly at the CEO. This realignment will immediately save the company $4.2 million in annual overhead, resolving the unexpected revenue shortfalls we encountered in the enterprise sector. Chairman Hastings nodded slowly from the VIP box, reaching for his pen to sign the executive order. The time on the auditorium wall clock read 10:24 a.m. I stood up. In the quiet auditorium, the sound of my heels clicking against the hardwood steps leading up to the stage was like a series of gunshots. Vivian paused, her smile freezing mid-sentence. Director Wendy, questions will be taken during the open floor session after the presentation. There won't be an open floor session, Vivian, I said, walking calmly to the center of the stage, holding a wireless microphone I had taken from the audio control desk. CEO Richard Vance frowned from the front row. Wendy, what is the meaning of this interruption? The meaning, Mr. Vance, I said, turning to face the 400 executives in the room, is that the report currently displayed on that screen is a fraudulent instrument designed to conceal a $1.4 million corporate embezzlement scheme orchestrated by the 2 individuals standing at that podium. A collective, deafening gasp swept through the auditorium. Henry's face went completely bloodless. He slammed his hand onto the podium, shouting into his microphone, Wendy, have you lost your mind? Security. Escort her out. She's having an emotional breakdown because of the layoff. Notification. 2 security guards stepped toward the stage stairs. Nobody touches her. Eleanor Vance's voice boomed from the back of the auditorium. Eleanor strode down the center aisle, flanked by 4 federal agents from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, and the city's deputy district attorney, holding a stack of stamped court injunctions high in the air. By order of the state Supreme Court and the Federal Securities Commission, this assembly is now an active evidentiary proceeding, Eleanor announced, her voice echoing with absolute authority. At that exact second, the clock struck 10:25 a.m. Ping, ping, ping. Across the auditorium, 400 smartphones, tablets, and laptops lit up simultaneously with the incoming broadcast email. Chairman Hastings looked down at his iPad. His eyes widened to the size of saucers. On the 50-foot LED stage screen behind Vivian and Henry, the presentation slides suddenly flickered, glitched, and were replaced by the unencrypted forensic dashboard. In 50-foot tall, razor-sharp glowing letters, the real numbers appeared. Operations Department actual revenue, $18,420,000, 92.1% target completion. Below it, the audit logs scrolled down line by line. Unauthorized revenue reallocation. $8,200,000 diverted to marketing via manual override. Authorization signature. Henry Miller, Senior Finance Manager. Number 84920. Primary shareholders. Henry Miller, 50%, and Vivian Thorne, 50%. No, this is a hack. It's fabricated. Vivian shrieked, her voice losing every shred of its sweet melody, turning into a raw, feral scream. She lunged toward the AV control console to pull the cables, but a female federal agent stepped onto the stage, blocking her path with a badge. Vivian Thorne, step away from the terminal, the agent commanded. I walked slowly over to Henry, who was gripping the edge of the mahogany podium, so hard his knuckles were split and bleeding. Henry, I said softly into the microphone, my voice carrying into every corner of the frozen room. You told me on our 3rd anniversary that you were in Miami, meeting a bald client in his 50s. I clicked the remote in my hand. The screen split. On the left was the Four Seasons presidential suite invoice for $8,600, billed directly to the corporate entertainment card Henry managed. On the right was a high-resolution photograph taken by the hotel's pool terrace camera. Vivian in her red bikini, laughing as Henry, wearing his wedding ring, with the distinctive left side scratch, kissed her shoulder. The client doesn't look bald to me, I said. And she certainly doesn't look 50. The auditorium descended into absolute pandemonium. Board members stood up shouting in outrage. CEO Richard Vance threw his leather portfolio onto the floor, his face dark with fury as he pointed at the stage. Security. Lock the exits. Call the corporate legal division immediately. Henry completely unraveled. In a blind panic, he turned on Vivian, grabbing her by the shoulders and shaking her violently in front of 400 colleagues and the media cameras. It was her. Henry screamed into the live microphone, his voice cracking into pathetic, hysterical sobs. She set the whole thing up. She forged the recruitment forms. She told me Wendy would never notice the ledger adjustments. She seduced me, Mr. Vance. She told me she would make me chief financial officer once we pushed Wendy out. Vivian gasped, staring at Henry with pure, unadulterated hatred, before slapping him across the face with such force that the crack echoed through the speakers. You cowardly piece of trash. Vivian shrieked, her manicured nails clawing at his neck, leaving bloody red streaks across his collar. You were the one who stole the ERP master passwords. You were the one who drafted the trust agreement to steal Wendy's penthouse. You begged me to help you get rid of her, because you were sick of living in her father's shadow. They tore into each other like two feral dogs in an open pit, screaming, clawing and spitting venom, their designer clothes ripping as the federal agents and security guards moved in to pin them both to the stage floor. Click, click. The cold steel of handcuffs snapped shut around Vivian's wrists, followed by Henry's. I stood 3 paces away, watching them writhe in the dust beneath the glaring spotlights. Vivian looked up at me from the floor, her hair matted with sweat, her mascara streaming down her cheeks in thick black tears. Wendy. She wept, her voice dropping into that familiar, trembling plea. Wendy, please, you brought me into this company. You know how hard my life was. I made a mistake. Please tell them it was a misunderstanding. I looked down at her eyes. Her left eye was bloodshot. Her right eye followed 2 seconds later. Vivian, I said, my voice smooth, calm, and utterly devoid of pity. Your left eye is red. But like I told you in the elevator, the trick doesn't work anymore. I turned my back on them and walked off the stage. Behind me, the federal agents hauled them to their feet, dragging them down the center aisle through a barrage of flashing press cameras and the deafening jeers of the colleagues they had tried to destroy. 2 hours later, the CEO's executive suite on the 50th floor was quiet. Chairman Arthur Hastings, an 80-year-old titan of industry with sharp gray eyes, sat across from me, pouring 2 cups of hot, unadorned black coffee. The internal audit is complete, Hastings said, pushing a gold-sealed document across the mahogany desk. Henry Miller and Vivian Thorne are currently in federal holding. FinCEN has frozen all domestic and offshore accounts linked to Aegis Consulting. Every penny stolen from your department will be fully recovered by tomorrow afternoon. I took a sip of the coffee, rich, bitter, and completely unsweetened. And the restructuring? I asked. Cancelled, Hastings said firmly. The 14 employees from your team are reinstated immediately with a 30% retention bonus and full stock options. Furthermore, the board of directors has unanimously voted to remove the VP of Operations and create a new unified executive post. He slid the second document toward me. Executive appointment. Chief Operating Officer, Wendy Chen. We need someone who can protect the balance sheet and the people who build it. Hastings looked at me with deep, unvarnished respect. The position is yours, Wendy. I looked down at the contract, feeling the smooth, heavy weight of the fountain. Pen in my hand. I signed my name with a single unbroken stroke. Wendy Chun. Thank you, Chairman. By 6 o'clock that evening, the winter rain had washed the city streets clean, turning the asphalt into mirrors reflecting the neon city lights. I returned to the penthouse for the last time. The locks had already been changed by the building management. Inside, too, professional movers were packing Henry's remaining belongings, his suits, his golf clubs, his expensive watches, into cardboard boxes labeled for delivery to his public defender's office. On the kitchen island sat the formal divorce petition Eleanor had filed at 2 o'clock p.m. Fault-based dissolution on grounds of felony fraud, adultery, and domestic asset conversion. Under state law, with the criminal convictions pending, Henry would forfeit every claim to marital property, his retirement accounts, and his legal right to set foot within 500 feet of me for the rest of his life. I walked into the master bedroom, opened the closet, and took down the dark blue plaid shirt. I carried it to the outdoor balcony overlooking the river. The evening wind was cold, sharp, and invigorating. I pulled out a brass lighter, struck the flint, and touched the flame to the tiny scorched hole beneath the left chest pocket. The cotton caught fire instantly, burning with a bright, clean orange flame, the synthetic fibers melting into the dark air, the faint scent of Bleu de Chanel dissolving into the smell of clean, falling rain. I dropped the ashes into the metal brazier and watched them blow away over the river into the vast, open horizon. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Zoe in the department group chat. Director Wendy, or should we say Chief Wendy, the team is at the bistro downstairs celebrating. Are you coming? I looked at the message, a genuine, radiant smile finally curving my lips. I typed a quick reply. I'm on my way down. First round is on me. I closed the door, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the button for the ground floor. The numbers descended, one by one, until the doors opened to the wide, bright world outside.